Hello, everybody. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and one of the hosts of this program, Soul Empowerment. Today, we're going to talk about something that probably gets to everybody at this time of the year, and maybe at other times of the year too. This idea of having to deal with holidays and family and all the things that go on during those times that, well, we've got a lot to talk about here today, so I'm not going to waste too much time doing a preamble. What I am going to do is I'm going to invite all my co-hosts to begin to introduce themselves. And today I'm going to start with you, Sarah. Please say who you are, where you are, what you do, and why.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jane. I'm in the UK. What I do is I work with energy, Reiki, sound, people with the inner child, host of Gift of Healing TV, channel dragons and mythical beings, and speak light language. Why do I do it? Because I love it, and I love to be able to help people to help themselves.
Oh, beautiful. And you do it so well too, Sarah. You're just an amazing gift to the world. Thank you for being here. And next I'm going to go to you, Scott.
Thank you. I'm Scott Holmes. I'm a quantum intuitive healer, whatever that means and whatever that puts forth. So I live up here in Boston, or over here, or down here in Boston, and I am here to uncover the 12-year-old within you that is looking for joy for these holidays. I am looking to uncover. It's my word of the next coming year is uncover. And I'm going to use that in every which way I can, because for me, it's all about taking the layers off to be able to find my authentic self and get closer to who that is. And I help people do that. And it is because I want people to be happy, joyful, and really grateful for who and what they are.
Beautiful. And thank you for being here, Scott. It's always a pleasure to share space with you. And of course, by no means least, but at the end of the chain today is Gayle. Say hello, Gayle. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? And why?
Hello. I am Gayle Nowak. I am also in the greater Boston area, and a big part of my work is supporting coaches and healers and conscious leaders in being fully seen without sacrificing relationships that matter to them, primarily the relationship with yourself. And I love that we're talking about holiday overwhelm today, because this season tends to reveal and uncover, Scott, those relationship patterns and where we may tend to abandon ourselves and forget and lose ourselves in things. And really my work is about helping my clients return to themselves with compassion. And why do I do it? All the reasons why I do it, because it's a path that I've walked for myself, and because this life can be an excellent adventure when we're willing and committed to do the work of getting to the heart of our authentic self. And sometimes that's something that unfolds in joyful ways, and sometimes that happens in what I like to call contrasting ways. And there are times in our lives where we need a guide to help us through that. And that just brings me so much joy to be able to be a guide on the side with my clients.
Yeah, beautiful, Gayle. Thank you so much. And I'm grateful. Well, I'm grateful for all of you for being here. I mean, you're just amazing people. And I think we've been doing this for almost 2 years together now, and it's just been a delight. And I just realized, I never introduce myself in the way that I ask you to introduce yourselves. So let me give that a shot and see how it goes today. So my name is David McLeod. I am, as I said, I'm your life mastery coach. That's just my business name. But I live here in Meridian, Idaho, which is right next door to Boise. And what I do, I came to the awareness a number of years ago that there's nothing more important than knowing, experiencing, and expressing the truth of who you really are. And what I realized is that this is something that is just so obvious to me now, but most people don't really even understand what that means. They think, well, I know who I am. I am this person. I am David, or I am a man, or I'm a pilot, or I'm a poet, or whatever. They put all those labels on themselves, and they think that they know who they are as a result of that. But the deepest truth is, you're none of those things. Those are just things that you do. Those are minor little itty bitty expressions that emanate out of the truth of who you are. And that's the thing that I've been grappling with that for myself for a very long time in my life. And I realized I have to figure out how to say it so that I can teach other people how important this is. And so that's my primary coaching paradigm now, has to do with this whole notion of life mastery. And I'm actually writing a brand new book. It's called The Tree of Life Mastery, that I hope will be ready for publication on April 13th. Thank you, Sarah, for the suggestion of that date. And maybe one day I'll explain why we chose that date. But right now, I just want you to know that it brings in what I call 13 alignment dimensions for living an absolutely fabulous life. And these dimensions span across 4 primary energetic archetypes that are all available to all of us at all the time. So that's what I do, and I do it because I'm really, first of all, I was really excited that I figured this out for myself, and I'm trying to live this way. And I realize if we can get more people to live that way, there'd be a lot more joy and a lot less pain in the world. So that's really why I do it. So there you go. I'm sure, sorry, that was probably way too long, but you get the point. And so today, here we are talking about holidays. And everybody loves holiday, right? Everybody loves holidays. Well, maybe not so much. Yeah. As soon as you start thinking, oh my God, I have to go and visit my family. I have to do this. I have to buy all these presents. I have to do this and that and the other thing. It's overwhelming. And so today we're going to talk about diffusing holiday overwhelm. And Sarah, you and I did and Scott as well did a lot of the initial write-up for this, but Sarah, I want you to start today and bring us into the center of this topic with whatever's coming up for you right now.
I think it's families, isn't it? And there are so many different characters within a family. And
say that again.
But I remember sort of having a conversation with my 2 sisters and talking about our childhoods. And you'd think we were brought up in 3 totally different families, because our experiences and our perceptions and our understandings of those experiences were all different. And so just because we've all been raised by so-called the same parents doesn't mean that we are the same people at all. And it does create, yes, experiences within a family. And it's being able to be in that place of trying to understand our families, what's happened with them. And this is sort of something I've been very much thinking about recently is what was my mother's life like when she was growing up? What was my grandmother's life like when she was growing up? And going back, and okay, then we go to the fathers and grandfathers, but I was just thinking the feminine line. And we are all shaped by the things that have happened to us. And I think about getting our family together. And my mother is a classic of interrupting you before you have finished what you were saying. And so I've actually got to the point where if she does that, I just shut up and I don't say another word. I just keep quiet. Because actually I feel it's very rude to not let somebody finish what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And I interview a lot of people, and it is so important to listen to the whole thing, because you can miss out on the important things. But the sad part is that for too many years, I was equally as guilty for butting in before other people. And so that spoke to some of sort of what was said in the write-up, is that, what comes up for us is we go back to being that younger self. We go back to being that person, that child within the family. Only this particular, well, a lot of Christmases over the last few years have been my mother, my sisters, their children, and now their children's children. And so we've got a 4 generation. So we've got a lot of noise and a lot of interruption, sort of.
Right.
But
yeah.
it's also being in that place of watching, of listening, and trying to understand what is going on. Because actually, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, they were all only children.
Mm.
So, and lived through wars and goodness knows what else. So we're going back well over a century. So
Yeah, it's
life
pretty
was so
fascinating,
different.
isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing. And, I'm sure Gayle and Scott, you probably resonate with a lot of what Sarah was saying. I know I certainly do. I had a recent encounter with my brother last October, I guess it was, and we hadn't seen each other for years. And I was listening to him, and I was noticing how much he was reflecting the images of me that he remembers, which I mean, I guess there's still a part of those energies within me, but not to the same degree that they are now. I believe I have become a completely different person, because of the work I've done. And so, to be honest with you, I really didn't enjoy that encounter all that much. So I'm not really jumping at the opportunity to go out and connect with him again, because I know it's going to be the same thing. Well, I guess I don't know that, but I guess I fear that it's going to be the same thing. That's really a more accurate statement. So I think that this is a problem that we all have to deal with. So the question is, what do we do? First of all, though, I want to give Gayle and Scott a chance to talk a little bit about this, because I want to hear your experience on this issue.
Yeah. Wow. A lot is coming up for me just from listening to Sarah and what you've shared, David. And what I'm noticing is that I've been able to move into a space of creating the holidays my way. and I'm feeling a lot of gratitude right now for being able to do that, and a little bit of sadness too, because part of the reason why I've been able to do that, even though I started doing that, is because my stepfather has passed away, my mother has passed away. My dad and I, we have a decent relationship, but he was out of the picture when I was, from the time that I was a baby. And so while I sometimes think of him as the parent that is easier to relate to in a lot of ways, because he's gone through, he's not a stranger to transformation, and he was the one parent who was actually willing to look at his own stuff and take some responsibility for things. He wasn't really a huge part of my life growing up, and sometimes I spent holidays with him, but that was like really stressful for me. And I don't spend holidays necessarily with him all that often as an adult, right? So, and then there's the family I married into, which is a whole other thing. And I am now in this place of being able to say, this is how I like to spend the holidays. I don't like the big crowd.
Yeah.
I want it to be, we spent Thanksgiving just the 4 of us together. Sometimes it's with a bigger group, right? But we're now at that age or that place where we're adults and we can put our big pants on and we can speak for how we want to do it. And I know that that's challenging. It was very challenging for me at first, and sometimes it's still met with, well, how come they don't want to spend how come they don't want to spend Easter with us? How come, and there's this acknowledgement of there's some sort of story. And the truth is, it's like, this is what we prefer. It's not,
Right.
sometimes there isn't this big dramatic story around it. that being said, sometimes it is nice, even with the characteristics and the different characters, right? One of the things that I love about our Christmas is that Christmas Eve, my husband, and even there's some Polish in my bloodline too, but my husband is Polish, and his father is like 100% Polish. And so we've maintained that tradition on Christmas Eve. It's called, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, Vigilia. I don't know how to say it, but it's kind of like this big feast. And I believe that, Portuguese families do this as well, like the Feast of the Fishes or something like that. And it's a beautiful tradition.
Mhm.
And we get together and we make pierogies ahead of time, and that is a beautiful tradition, and it's fun, and it's passed down through 1, 2, 3, 4 generations now.
Right.
And I did not have that growing up. I didn't have a tradition like that. And so, is it overwhelming? Does it get loud? Are there lots of personalities involved? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and part of that, David, is something that you hit on, of the expectations, right? Like, my husband and I have been together since 2001. So this has been a huge part of my adult life. And you get used to how things roll, and then you expect things to happen a certain way, and then guess what? They happen that way. And so
Mhm.
sometimes for us, I think it's breaking the pattern of expecting it to be that way. And that is not always easy to do. But it's something that I've been playing with over the last few years, of like, how can I go into this clear about what my limits are and not expecting maybe some of those unwanted things to happen. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting when we go into it with a certain kind of energy, with a certain type of openness, what can play out. And a lot of times recently, and I'm so happy, like excited and grateful that this is showing up, is that I walk away feeling like, okay, it actually was fun. Like,
Right.
I didn't get triggered by this, that, and the other thing. In fact, I don't even remember that showing up. So I do think that we have the maybe more power to create what we want out of the holidays than maybe we think that we do. And all of that to say is, I get that it's not always easy and that it can still be overwhelming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thank you, Gail. Beautiful share. Scott, I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, you all landed on stuff. So yes, Sarah, my brother is 7 years younger, and we were an Air Force family. And when my brother was born, my father got out of the Air Force. So I lived in someplace new every year. My brother, 7 years younger, grew up until he was 25 in one place. So talk about a dichotomy of upbringing, right? That that brings itself to the roles that we all play. I have two sisters in between my brother and I, and everybody fills a role. Even now, when we get back together, my parents are now gone, but when we get together, which we do after Christmas because everybody's got their own families, everybody falls back into that role. It's absolutely amazing when families get together. You know, you might be 55, but you're the baby of the family, and that's how you're treated. And it's like, wait a minute, that isn't who I am anymore. What are you talking about? And it's part of the thing that's come up through the course of the year is that we fail as adults to re-engage with our siblings. When the parents are gone, is why dissolution of family so many times happens and traditions aren't upheld. I was married for 40 years and we had traditions. I had 4 in my family. My wife had 6 in her family. And we tried to maintain the integrity of 2 different families with their own traditions. And talk about clashing. Her family had Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Christmas night. They had their tradition. my family had Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Christmas night, their traditions. And when we first got married, we were the first one in each of our families really to get married. All of a sudden, we're trying to cut ourselves in half. Oh, talk about stressful. We
Yeah,
were the first
literally.
ones to have children. We were the first one to have children. So we're carting our kids around, from house to house to house to house. And our kids never got to, they opened their presents Christmas morning and then didn't see them again until 9 o'clock Christmas night. So we realized things had to change. And we had to change that for our kids so that they had
Right. Mm.
that. And we developed the traditions within our nuclear family to be able to, and we traded off and we did things, some years and as they're wont to do, right? Almost like when parents divorce and you get the kids this Thanksgiving and you get the kids next Christmas and all of that. We try to maintain the integrity of that, and that was a really tough act to be able to tightrope, because then there were hard
Mm.
feelings and how come you're never coming here and how come we didn't see you and all of these things that come up, and so expectations is one of those things for me. I mean, my wife was all about Christmas, and Christmas pretty much threw up in our house is the expression we used to. My son-in-law came in and would go, "How long does it take you to do this? Because it looks like because every flat surface, everything was covered, every doorway was draped, my wife went crazy with Christmas, and he'd just say, it's too much. Christmas threw up, and I don't know what to do." Because everywhere you look, there was something different.
I love that. Christmas threw up in our house. That's hilarious, dude.
And my wife just it took 3 weeks to put everything out. And so it wasn't until Little Christmas on January 12th that we would take everything down, and it would take 2 days. But that was how she celebrated. She grew up in a family of six. Now I had three daughters, and she wanted the same, six kids worth of presents, and everything was basically you couldn't see the living room floor because there was so much stuff and so many wrapping paper, and it was so much chaos. And my wife tried to recreate that with my three daughters. So if I didn't say no to, she was always saying to me, "How come you say no when we go to buy things?" I said, "Because our if we wouldn't be able to live after Christmas because of all the things you brought in for the girls." But this was she was a teacher that she celebrated holidays and lived it. So it's
Right.
those traditions that we did. And it was walking that line between overwhelm and calm. And some of the best Christmases we had was when we did the simple things. And I wanted to tell one story. We lived in a three-family tenement when we first were married. And there was a 92-year-old woman from Sweden. She talked like, yeah, you put your pajamas on, yeah. Lovely, lovely lady. And she would go to bed at 6:30 every night. And every Christmas, she had this tree that was a fake tree from 1950, which was basically a broomstick painted green with things put in. And and so one Christmas Eve, after she had gone to bed, my wife and I brought a real Christmas tree down. We had bought a small Christmas tree and we brought it down. We took the old one out and we decorated the tree with all of her ornaments, and we decorated with more of ours. And we went down the next day, Christmas Day, and her daughter who was taking care of her said, "I've never seen this." We said, "What?" She said, "She's been in there for 3 hours sitting looking at the tree." She says it's the most beautiful thing she's seen. And for me, being able to do those small acts of kindness have always been what Christmas was truly for me. It's not the grandiose things. It's the
Right.
it's the taking a name from the Salvation Army and buying for a 6-year-old girl who's, size 5 and doing that. And I taught my grandchildren. I brought it and I gave each of my to my grandchildren, and I said, "Okay, you have $75 to spend. This is their sizes and this is what." And they took such incredible care, and they were teenagers at the time, and they took such incredible care and such thought about, because they had to stay within that dollar amount, and they had to buy for this specific, and they put so much thought into it. And I wanted to teach them that you don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to make somebody's Christmas, that you can make a difference with just a small amount, but it's the thought that counts. And that's what I was trying to kind of teach them at that time. So
Yeah, beautiful.
Christmas for me is about giving.
Yeah.
I never, we never had much with 4 kids. My dad was in the service, so we always had enough, but we never went without. And that's how I've gone through life. And that's why I travel, because I don't like things. I like experiences.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful, Scott. Thank you for sharing. One of the things that you were talking about, this idea of trying to balance different sets of traditions and expectations of whole different groups of people. I just had this crazy thought. In fact, I'm going to use this for trying to populate all the guests on my Magnificence in Motion show. But the idea is this: send out a notice or an email or something to all the people who are expecting you to be present for their events, and say, here are the times I'm available during this Christmas period, from here to here. Dates and times when I'm available. Please choose 2 dates within this time frame and get back to me. And I will only pick one of them, but I'm going to try and work it out so I get some time with everybody. I'm going to try and balance this out. Yeah, it sounds very logical, scientific, whatever, procedural, whatever you want to call it. But why not? This way, you're doing your best to accommodate everybody, and they get the sense, oh yeah, we can't expect everybody to show up at every event that we have. You're changing their expectations. And what you're doing by doing that is you're now helping to build out your own schedule, which of course is going to remove your own sense, well, not remove it, but at least reduce your own sense of overwhelm and allow you to start planning. I think along the same lines, one thing I really, really dislike about this time period is the consumerist approach that we seem to have, that you have to buy gifts for every person that you know. And I mean, we end up buying gifts that nobody wants. You don't even want to buy the damn thing, and nobody wants to receive it. They're useless gifts, but you're doing it to fulfill some, I don't know, sense of guilt or equality or whatever the hell it is we're trying to do. And I can remember, even when I was a kid, there were so many gifts I got. I'm never going to use this. Even as a kid. And that was, hey, I hate to tell you, 55, 60 years ago, long time ago, back before consumerism got crazy like it is today. I can't imagine what it's like for parents today. I'm so grateful that I don't have to experience that. So what do we do? I mean, I've got an agreement with my sons, and I just say, look, guys, I just don't want any more gifts. I don't want gifts because it's Christmas. If you have something that you want to give me, don't wait for Christmas. Give it to me, and give it to me from your heart. That's what I want. And the kinds of things that I really appreciate nowadays, I don't like these concrete gifts like you were saying, Scott. It's what I like, what I really, really appreciate. My son, when he was younger, he used to draw pictures, and he would draw pictures of superheroes. And I absolutely loved it when he'd give me a picture like that, because very often Dad was featured somewhere in the picture. So I love that. Those are things that are invaluable. You cannot put a price tag on stuff like that. And those are the things that I value now. I still got them. Some of the physical gifts they gave me, long gone. So why don't we teach each other to do that sort of thing? I think, Sarah, this is something that you have said before. We teach people how to treat us. So the more abuse we take, the more abuse we get. It's really quite simple. So the moment we learn to say no, put up a hand and set a boundary, that's when things start to shift. So And boundaries, by the way, I know one of Gayle's favorite topics, boundaries are very, very powerful for helping to reduce overwhelm. In fact, Sarah, I know one of your favorite words these days is no. So why don't you tell us about why it's so important to be able to say no?
For me, you're saying no to others and yes to yourself. Whereas all those years that you were saying yes to everybody else, you were still saying no, but you were saying it to yourself.
Right.
And personally, and this is my feeling about this, while you are constantly saying yes to others, you are holding two people back. You are holding yourself back because you're doing for them, and you're holding them back because you're not encouraging them to do it for themselves. So support people, but we're not doings, we're beings.
Right.
And when we say no to somebody, if it's really important to them, we're encouraging them to potentially do it for themselves, or they'll go and look for somebody else who'll do it for them. But then that's their choice. And then by saying no to them, you're saying yes to yourself. And you're empowering yourself to do those things that feel right for you, that you would like to do, that speaks to your heart. And so I suppose this is something that my sisters and myself, we had a conversation quite a few years ago now, because my oldest great niece is going to be 16 next year. So she's 15. And it's just like, is she really? Okay, fine. But it was a matter of, I've got 9 great nieces and nephews, 5 nieces and nephews with their partners. And it's just like, actually, I'm on my own. There isn't a dual income. So my youngest sister is also on her own. So she doesn't have a dual income, but she does have 3 kids and 5 grandkids. So it became an agreement. I don't expect anything from them, and I don't get anything for any of them. What they do within their own families is totally up to them, because all we were doing was just either spending money or giving money, and it was just around. The money was just going. It was just like it was so daft.
Exactly.
It was so daft. It really was. And so we came to that agreement. Christmas Day, I am going to be spending right here at home with the friend I share the house with, and it's going to be a quiet day. Whether I will pop over to my sisters on Christmas evening, I don't know. And whether I'll see them Christmas Eve, I don't know at the moment. Boxing Day was always a big day, the day after Christmas, 26th of December. Always a big day in our family because it was my grandfather's birthday. And so it was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. It was 2.5 days off. It's solid. So I will be going across Boxing Day. But every time we get together as a family, I always take a good chunk of food with me. So I don't expect to get fed for free. And my sister only said to me the other day, she said, "Oh, Sarah, I know you're doing this, this, and this." She said, "Can you make a little bit of your vegetable dish for us, please, for Boxing Day?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." Because I think most of us have that dish or those dishes that members of the family. And so it was just like, "Sarah, will you do that?" It's just like, "Yeah,
Right.
okay, fine. I should, if you want me to pay for the vegetables, I will." I said, "Okay, fine, Katie, I'll do it." But we're also, but I listened to my mum, and she said, as much as she loves seeing everybody together, there will be 4 young children at Katie's, at least 4 young children. And it gets very noisy. And I've never had children. And so I love peace and quiet. My mother's now 88. And actually, the noise of young children gets too much for her as well. And she says, "I love seeing you all." And plus the fact she's got hearing aids and she still can't hear us. So we have to shout or repeat ourselves. So I think we do the big family thing, but should we be thinking about doing the separate family thing and inviting the older generations to smaller things, which are more we can cope with more easily than the great big everybody getting together. My sister, my middle sister, she's an absolute gem with what she does. But I've got past that. I'm still prepared to do bits, but I think it's, are we all making rods for our own backs? Should we be trying to spend quality time with people rather than getting into these great big family get-togethers that can end up with the arguments and the fallouts, etc.? If we can't be in that room, that space together without there being that sort of thing, should we seriously consider taking a step back from it and making sure that we have little smaller bits with little micro bits of family so that we can really enjoy each aspect? My sisters and I are very much in contact with each other. We haven't lost that. Middle sister lives locally. Youngest sister I speak to on a weekly basis as well. So we haven't lost that, and we won't lose that when mum goes. We're very, very lucky in that respect that we are close as sisters.
Yeah, beautiful.
So for everybody, it's, yes, there are expectations, but as has been said actually here several times, can we not think about what works for us and change and adjust those expectations so that everybody actually gets to spend time? We can talk to each other. We can get to know what's been going on in every individual's life, rather than it being just a mass of noise, which in most cases is what it is.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. That's a beautiful share. I appreciate it. One of the things that I just like to say, I think the idea of boundaries is important, and that's really what we're talking about here. Setting healthy boundaries, taking care of ourselves, because after all, if I don't take care of myself, I can't really be of service to anybody else. So that's the first thing. But I like the idea of practicing to say no, but that doesn't mean to say I have to be like a 2-year-old who says no to everything, right? And I think this is where sometimes, before I even answer, the best thing I can do is just pause and take a breath and just check in with myself and say, is that really going to work for me? Ask myself that. I don't have to say it out loud. And if it's going to take some time, I'll just say to the person, I'm not prepared to answer that right in this moment. Can you give me like 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever? I want to think about this before I make a commitment one way or the other. Most people will be quite accommodating. They're not, I'm sure most people don't need an instant answer unless somebody's life is in danger. So think about it that way, as a way of, we talked about diffusing holiday overwhelm. Well, part of the reason that you're doing this is taking that breath, to pause, is to reduce the energy on your body, right? The other thing that I want to kind of switch the gears here and start talking a little bit more about strategies we can use to help actually perform this diffusion, right? And one of the things that I know about myself, and I suspect this is true for a lot of people, is my ego mind gets activated kind of easily. And I notice that I make up stories and have judgments and all kinds of things about other people in my life. And it's something that I need to bring awareness to for myself in order to reduce the energy of those judgments and just try to be more present and to whatever is going on. So, Gayle, can you give us some strategies for how to, recognize judgments, interpretations, conclusions, and find ways of just breathing into it and, I don't know, diminishing the effect of those judgments?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I'm a work in progress with this. Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so I will, and I just want to underscore a couple of things that we've already been talking about. I think the three-pronged approach of intention, agreements, and boundaries can really set people up for success during this time of the year, right? Getting clear, like you said, David, I know you were talking specifically, when you're being asked to make a decision, but we can do that process before a decision is even put forth of,
Right.
okay, what is actually going to work for me? What is going to work for me around the holidays, or what is going to work for me and my family around the holidays? My immediate, if you have your own family, if you've created family, right? Like for me, that's the question that I ask. And I like to give my kids choices and voices in that. Mom and dad get veto power, but but usually we're making agreements that work for everybody. Agreements, right? Okay. Sometimes we make agreements with other family members, and we might be following the agreement. Maybe they're not following the agreement, especially agreements around gift giving. Some people just like to give gifts, and they're going to give gifts even though they said, okay, I hear you, you don't want to do gift giving, and they do it anyway. And really that is about allowing yourself to receive the gift without guilt and without, getting upset about it, whatever. And also, being true to yourself and keeping your side of the agreement. Again, not always an easy thing to do, but like that's definitely something we're learning on the court in our family. And then those boundaries, of course. So I just wanted to come back to that because I think that that's a powerful place to start. And now I'll answer your question, David, which is what? Which is, can you repeat
Oh,
it? Because I lost it.
well, it had to do with judgments and
Okay.
conclusions and
Yes.
interpretations and
Right.
story and stuff.
So, right. Because we're, especially when we're talking about family or even just people in our lives that we've known for a long time, we tend to see them how we've always seen them. And, we're all human and we all make mistakes. And whether we want to or not, sometimes we hurt people or we disappoint people. And it can be very easy to get stuck on that and then have our judgments. And so I don't have a perfect answer or even a great answer necessarily around this because I notice it too. I mean, I notice, my judgy, I got a pretty loud judge, and I allow that judge to be loud in my head, right? But I don't necessarily move or speak or act from there. I do take that pause. I do say to myself, like, what? Okay, I hear you. And I hear that you're, worried about this or upset about this, and it's almost like having that inner dialogue with yourself ahead of time instead of just saying, you know what, this person's a jerk. And so I'm going in with a chip on my shoulder because I know this person is a jerk 100% of the time because the rest of us are never jerks ever, but it is allowing, it's not cutting that off either. I think you have to voice it for yourself. And then you can get to that place of like, have I ever, you can start asking yourself questions. Well, have I ever been like that? Have I ever? And it's not necessarily to let people off the hook. It's simply to just expand your vision. Because I think when we're judgy or defensive, we get really narrow.
Mhm.
And it's helpful to then be honest with ourselves and have some humility and say, have I ever done this before? And that starts to expand that vision and have compassion for yourself.
Right.
Maybe you have compassion for the other person, maybe not. Like maybe you're simply neutral, but it does take the charge out of, I'm expecting this, I'm now having a judgment about it, and shifts it into maybe this will happen. And if it does, hey, that's them.
Right. That's
Who do I
great.
want to be in this situation?
Yeah, beautiful. First of all, I want to say I love the idea about agreements. I mean, this is something that I have recommended a lot. Um, and I will go a step further. I think all agreements should be written down, because a verbal agreement is not worth the paper it's not printed on. So keep that in mind. And it may sound like a lot of work, but the reality is, if I don't write it down, if we both don't write it down and sign our names to it, then when it comes time to question whether one of us is honoring the agreement or not, we won't know unless we're both looking at the same agreement. If I make a verbal agreement with you, you may have a different interpretation of what that agreement is than I do. Whereas if it's written down on paper, you have less problems with interpretation issues. So I strongly encourage written agreements. Yeah, it's more work, but it's worth it, believe me. In the long run, it's worth it. And I encourage people who are in primary relationship to have that kind of foresight. Put down what's okay for you in your relationship, what's not okay for you in relationship, and put it down, and talk about it, and then come to a written agreement that you both like. So I think that's really, really powerful. And then the other side of that is, if one party or the other doesn't honor the agreement, then you have to have some process in place for coming back into integrity with each other. And I have a process that I teach all the time. It's called self-accountability. It's very, very easy. Anybody can do it. But if I'm not if let's say I'm the one who's not honoring my agreement, or honoring our agreement, and you have an issue with that, and I'm not aware of that issue, or maybe I'm not even aware that I've messed up on the agreement. This is where you, on the other side of that agreement, come to me and say, hey, David, I seem to remember we have this agreement about X, Y, or Z, and for some reason, I'm not seeing you follow through on that. Can we have a talk about this? Now, at this point, if we're both responsible and mature adults, then the answer will be yes, we will have some kind of a conversation about it. But if I'm still working through my own issues, if I'm still kind of stuck in my immature little boy kind of stuff, I'll say, oh, you're just trying to make me wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'll make it about you, you see? And this is kind of what happens in our relationships. So the thing about it is, we have to teach ourselves to rise above our own childish impulses and say, you're right, I have not been honoring that agreement. And let me take a look at that and do some self-accountability about it. And it's best if I do that self-accountability with you present, because self-accountability is really nothing more than a process of understanding my own unconscious or subconscious limiting beliefs about myself, and little shadows that I have within myself that I haven't maybe perhaps acknowledged yet. And it's time, and so self-accountability is a great way for me to become aware of some energy inside me that keeps me from honoring the agreement I made with you. That's the beauty of self-accountability. And when I do that work in front of you, you begin to see me as a more vulnerable person, and any judgments you may have about me automatically tend to dissolve. That's the beauty of it. Now, I'm not going to go through a whole accountability process here, but I think it's a really, really powerful piece that people need to learn, right? So, Scott, I'd like to kind of get to you now and hear you. You're really great at these ideas of reducing negative energy. So, can you give us a few suggestions about how, when I'm caught up in some kind of overwhelm, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever, give us all some great ideas about, I know they're going to be fantastic, great ideas about how we can reduce that energy.
So before I go there, so you're talking about prenuptials for Christmas. I like that. You're signing a prenuptial agreement for Christmas, and that's
exactly
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the ways this one was taught to me the other day. About covering your left eye and looking up into your far right, all the way up to the right hand side in your right eye, and you do that for a minute, and you walk through that, and all of a sudden everything just comes right down.
Huh.
All of that anxiety, all of that. Of course, you you can do it at any time, but usually not in front of people. The other thing I do
I
is
just
called
got
Foursquare.
recorded doing it.
A Foursquare breath. What is that? Breathing in for 4, holding it for 4, breathing out for 4, holding it for 4, breathing in. So I teach a lot of my clients. I teach, especially those that get anxious and nervous. When you count in your head, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All of a sudden, when you were thinking about it, you've forgotten, and all of a sudden your shoulders just kind of calm down. Everything comes down, and all of a sudden you're able to kind of be a little bit more present. And in doing that, my God, I mean, if I can't sleep at night, I do a Foursquare breath, and sometimes I can't even get to the fourth time to go around because I've already relaxed my mind and it's already stopped, and I can go back to sleep. So, what you had talked about breath, David, one of the saving graces that I've had is that breath before I speak. I used to speak and then my mind would catch up, and then I couldn't take back what I said because I hadn't really thought about it. I was just reacting. And that inhale, that breath before I speak now allows me to catch up. And sometimes I just breathe out and don't say a word. And I don't need to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about expectation. When I go into a large gathering like that, I stay open from expectation. Uncle Joe, who's always been a jerk the whole time. Well, what I didn't realize is the last year, he stopped drinking. He's going to AA. He's trying to be a much, much better person. And if I don't stand there and listen with an open mind, I still think he's the jerk.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a man who is struggling and is coming into his own. This happened to me with a family member that I had only seen 2 years previous, and he was a different man. Much like I'm a much different man than I was 3 years ago, 8 years ago, 15 years ago. I try to do that with the family dynamics of just listening to my siblings and really intently understanding what their journey has been over the last time since I've done that. But more to the point, David, and I truly believe this is, and Sarah, I love that you speak to your sisters often, is that communication, constant communication, that connection takes away and fans all of that stuff away. It just, because you develop the relationship, you have that relationship. It isn't prejudged. You're not going in with this expectation, or it's like, okay, go ahead. I'm going to walk into this family reunion and I'm going to be fine. We've all had that. And we've all had those years where things just aren't great.
Right.
But being just kind of psyching yourself up, going, okay, let's see what's there. And that curiosity. We've talked about curiosity before, but that curiosity about people, and that can change everything. That one moment of curiosity can change everything.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
that's great. All these are great ideas, all of them. I wanted to add in one more, one that I don't think we've ever talked about on this program, tapping. Now, I don't know the proper mechanism for tapping, so please don't take this as gospel. But I do know I've learned some of the procedures, and basically the idea is tapping on certain areas of your body, not super hard, just enough to create a little bit of a vibration. And you can do it on your head, you can do it on your cheekbones, you can do it on your chin. Just, I'm just using 2 fingers, that's it. And if I bring into that idea an intention for, I might say, even though I have all these judgments, I believe that this holiday season is going to be super fantastic, wonderful, healthy. I'm really looking forward to connecting with my family. All of these things you can say to yourself in a positive way, even though I still feel some angst in my stomach or whatever. I can bring this forth in my life. So we all have this power. So if you combine all these things, the breathing, the four square breath, the I like this eyeball thing. I'm going to have to try that a bit more, see what that's all about. Oh, it's the left eye, right? Got it. But I think if you bring some of these ideas into your life and maybe start a practice of meditation, whatever that might look like for you, or yoga or something else that helps you to get into your body and be present with what's going on in your body rather than what's going on in your head, I think you can find yourself diffusing all kinds of unpleasant energies from your system quite easily by doing that. Sarah, I'd like to have you share with us a little bit about emotional honesty and how we can start embracing that a little bit more in our relationships with our families and interactions that we're going to have with people during these holiday seasons.
Yes, it is important to be emotionally honest, but I think you ought to do that prior to these family gatherings. When speaking to parents, to siblings, nieces, nephews, whatever it is, I really think that it should be done prior to, not during. But it first and foremost, be emotionally honest with yourself. What are you feeling, and what is beneath that feeling? And are you in judgment about what created that feeling? Is there something that you can learn from it? What happened? And can you, as an adult, be the witness rather than the child that didn't understand the circumstances? And I think that is really important. Yes, it is important to be open and honest about how things have made you feel. But at the end of the day, you are allowing yourself to express. And as when I went to see the psychotherapist all those years ago, and I said, oh, she doesn't understand, when I was talking to my mother and trying to explain what had happened to me felt, had made me feel. And I've learned so much more since then. She said, but she doesn't have to understand. She loves you anyway. The problem with that is that word love for me. And when we've talked about that before, I care very deeply. I struggle with the word love. But what I'd like to add to the things you've just done, and this is actually a mixture of two things that have come up just recently. And one is about holding your hand to your heart and breathing. But I'd like to add to that, because there was something else about you take a deep breath in and the out breath is a hum. So rather than just a breath out, you hum. So I've just done that very briefly. I work with sound. So if humming isn't, but when you're humming, when you're doing a sound, when you're doing something else, again, you're taking your mind out of things.
Right.
And so isn't it for us to be taking the ego mind, the monkey mind, the whatever it is, out of situations to potentially become more open to what are the undercurrents, what's going on beneath? But then I believe they are conversations for us to have outside the big family gatherings, and trying to make that time to not just have the conversation, but truly listen to the other individual and hope they respect you enough to listen to you.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. I want to thank everybody for just a beautiful share and lots of wonderful wisdom. And I know I'm going to give each of you a chance to say some final words. And I'm going to start with you, Sarah, because I know you have to leave. And I would really love it if you would close us out with some impromptu light language.
My pleasure. Oi tanaka shema, te roi chanaiki te mi, loe che ama, ek tarenge che te, Sorong kun turmai kai che. Ik turmanai ne akta ai ishe. Tueste est akata noi a te I kema. Namaste.
Beautiful. Thank you. Scott, do you have some final words you'd like to share before I stop the recording? Bye, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Find the joy. Joyo New Year. The joyous New Year, the joyous Christmas. It is supposed to be about love, confirmation of family. Find the joy in that. We're not here forever. Make sure you have the connection. Who knows who's not going to be here next year? Make sure you find those and bring joy to whatever you do. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Scott. Gayle, final words?
We provided a lot of different options and tools to help support you during the holiday season and to help support you throughout the whole year. And sometimes even that can feel overwhelming. And so I want to encourage those who are tuning in, pick one. When you're feeling that overwhelm, when you're feeling the spiraling, I personally, I didn't bring up movement as a tool, but several tools, body-based tools, really can interrupt that pattern of the mental spiraling. Pick one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Or pick something that really resonated with you and try it and just notice what happens. You don't have to fix anything. It doesn't have to necessarily work. Just try it. And as far as this holiday season, know that you are loved and you are appreciated and that you matter.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here, for watching this live or on the recording, whichever was true for you. I'm grateful that you're part of our family and part of our soul empowerment seeking people. I think it's wonderful. And I just want to say, I hope whatever you do during this holiday season turns out to be absolutely the most amazing time you've ever had. Even if it isn't perfect. Even if it isn't perfect, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just about you being fully present to the experience and giving yourself permission to love it and enjoy it and to be present to it. So the recording for this and all my other programs are on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. I thank you for being here. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey, and I'll see you next time on Soul Empowerment. Bye-bye, everybody.